This Saturday, My Hero Academia aired its 45th episode, or the 7th episode of Season 3. Now, this would actually be the conclusion to the training camp arc, or the summer training camp arc, however you want to put it. So, with 6 episodes to cover 13 chapters worth of content, how did the anime manage to surpass the manga? Let's go into that here. So, the first thing to talk about is, of course, music and sound design in general. The music for this series has been utterly spectacular for the first 2 seasons, and the 3rd season is no different. Directorial decision is actually what's directly responsible for music placement, but that music placement would be negligible without quality music to go along with it. Yuki Hayashi is incredible when it comes to the subtlety of music and also the bombastic classics of action pieces that we hear throughout this season. He, of course, composed seasons 1 and 2 as well, so having him back for season 3 is really important because he obviously has an understanding of this series, especially after working on it previously for 38 episodes. While the music is definitely important to crafting a scene, it is also the job of sound technicians to create convincing sound effects. These could be as simple as punches and kicks, or special laser sounds, or even a fist clenching. But these sound effects are utterly vital to crafting a tangible series, one that we can not only enjoy, but one we could also feel very invested in emotionally. Take the scene of All Might gripping his hand in episode 45. All Might's hand grips so tightly and has this visceral squeezing sound effect that you feel like you're really there listening to someone squeak their hand closed. Now in real life, try squeezing your hand as you might, you won't make that sound effect. But the idea of it having this grating sound, this kinetic force just from tightening a fist that just makes it sound so tight, it's so much friction being caused, is something that elevates a scene even further beyond. It's something a medium like a manga cannot portray with its limited visual aspects. Moving on from the oral stuff though, oral with an A, you perverts, the next thing to talk about is direction, and man, has this season had some incredible direction to start us off with. Direction is a huge factor into interlacing basic emotional intentions into our brain without us knowing it. So when a camera angle is at a downward position, we may think someone is higher than the person that is on the other side of that camera angle. Or perhaps we are supposed to be understanding the power and gravity of a situation, whereas a downward camera angle may actually portray something a bit more sad and heartbreaking. Camera movements also fit into this. Now, of course, there's no actual camera, but the way shots transition between certain scenes is something a manga medium, a still visual medium, cannot portray. While I've said in previous videos that Horikoshi is one of the best mangaka out there today, that is almost entirely based off of the use of unique angles and interesting action pieces that creates a visual medium that feels like it's moving. A method derived from the Akira Toriyama method of drawing action manga. The anime takes this to another level, utilizing the fact that it can move these camera angles and actually shift between shots using similar perspectives seen in the manga. You actually feel a sense of everyone being on screen at the same time, despite them not always being. There's a shot in episode 44 where Shoji and Midoriya are staring off into the woods and it's completely pitch black, and the camera swoops in through their heads and over their heads, aiming towards where Tokoyami is being consumed by dark shadow. This is a fairly basic technique, but it really sets up the idea of location for all the characters involved in this scene. We know just about how far Shoji and Midoriya are from Tokoyami. How far is the threat? How close are they? what is going to happen in this distance, what can they do from this distance, what decisions can be made based on what we know and what they know. Now that we have an understanding of the 3D space, we know how they can utilize the 3D space and what would seem more realistic and what wouldn't be. Whereas a manga cannot really display 3D space as well because, again, it is a 2D still medium. That's not to say that the manga doesn't try its best to keep track of all of its characters, but sometimes it's very easy to get lost as to where everybody is in relation to each other. That's actually why Horikoshi felt the need to use a map layout to sort of show you where everyone is in perspective of the scene and in perspective of the forest itself. Because obviously having trees everywhere, it's kind of hard to know who's where in the path and where relative to other characters. Who's going to run into who can save who, and who is going to fight who. It's easier to do that when you have this little map that kind of shows you it, but it's even better if we can avoid the map and then go straight from scene to scene, understanding the distance between. Again, this is a small elevation, but it is a way that it surpasses its manga counterpart. A more important directorial decision, I feel, is the use of color throughout this season. Of course, a manga is a black and white form of entertainment that sometimes has colored pages. However, it never utilizes colors in this way. Look at the backgrounds of these shots, or the overtones of these shots. The pink overtone on resident crazy girl, Toga. And then look at this blue undertone of Ida as he's contemplating the awful decision that Kirishima is making. A decision that he made last season when he went out to fight Stain for revenge. The parallels of the story, the blue undertone is supposed to give you this dramatic sense of foreboding, as well as this sense of despair and regret. Now, this actually conveys Ida as being more conflicted about the subject, rather than being harshly one-sided as he vocalizes. His internal struggles are demonstrated through the colors in the background behind him. You also definitely see this use of color when it comes to Deku after he uses the 1,000,000% Delaware-Detroit smash. This scene is brutal, and this full body shot is just the scene that scrolls up in the anime as a still of the whole thing. And when you compare it to the manga, there's a certain intensity that those black and gray tones send to you as a person. Those black and gray tones, the thing he had to commit, the pain, the adrenaline, all of it, everything that's hurting him inside is coming out. That look of screaming terror, that screaming pain almost, as he's looking up to the sky with his mouth agape, and it's just beautiful. It's something that really sentimentalizes the moment as opposed to just moving on to the next thing, as if he's just some happy-go-lucky shonen protagonist that beat the bad guy. He beat it at a cost to his own arms, his own body, the actions he was told not to take specifically by his teachers, by the nurse, by everyone in his life. He has taken those actions here for necessity to be a hero, but the pain that comes with being a hero is hitting him. And this is truly an emotional scene. And it is exemplified by the use of color. The black and white is also this sort of abysmal gradient that turns into a light of hope surrounding Deku. Of course, this scene is framed from Koda's perspective, as Koda says, "My hero." The hope is the light around Deku, but if you notice, the light isn't perfect, it isn't serene, it is intense. There are lines at the bottom of this image that are just completely and utterly intense. They're not smooth at all, they're not supposed to be. The idea is it's rough, it's painful, it is hopeful, but it's at a cost. It's the true meaning of being a hero. It's putting yourself on the line for someone else, for someone you didn't even know. It's the thing Koda's parents did, and that's what this scene reflects with just the lighting and the color work. It's utterly spectacular. And moving on to our final point of this video, how this 5-episode arc surpassed the 13-chapter manga is two things: pacing and expansion. it did not only pace itself extremely well that this arc ended in 5 episodes, where it could have been stretched to 6 or even 7, but it also expanded in areas that otherwise didn't seem like they needed to be until it was done. Take the entire training episode. That would be episode 41, titled Kota. This episode, besides giving us a great use of camera work again with Ida running through everybody as they trained, giving you again a sense of distance between everybody and placement, but also expanded upon something that was only 2 blurb pages in the manga and a half a page. It was utterly fantastic to see these characters actually training in motion and how they did it. I talked about this in my review for the episode, but really it is a shining example of expanding upon content that deserves to be expanded upon, and especially since Horikoshi didn't expand upon it the way he probably would have wanted to, because he wanted to keep a good pace in the manga, because the manga does have great pacing comparatively to most shonen battle series. There are also little bits of expansion, things you wouldn't deem necessary until you notice the finer details. Look at episode 45 again. At the end, we get close-up shots of Ida, then Todoroki, then Midoriya. It might not be something you've noticed, even if you have read the manga, because it's such a minor detail. In that shot, the 3 face close-ups, there's only 2 in the manga. It's only Ida and Midoriya. Whereas in the anime, they decide to put Todoroki in it as well. This gives us all 3 characters who interacted with Stain and know what Kirishima is trying to do is something that could get them in serious trouble. Where the manga strove to just show the conflict between Midoriya, Ida, and Kirishima, the anime goes one step further and tries to show us that the 3 people affected by Stain are the ones who are considering this in a different light than the other people present. Of course, everyone who experienced the Stain fight, who experienced going against your hero society's laws, are the ones who are going to be more greatly affected, interested, and conflicted when it comes to saving Bakugo. Of course, it is a powerful emotional scene from Kirishima's point, but I just wanted to point out this minor detail that happens there, which is a great showing of how they expand things in the anime that don't seem necessary again, but become more necessary as you dive deeper into the series, its characters, their motives, their pasts, and their struggles. It creates these internal characters that don't need to say anything to know what they're thinking. It helps us understand why Ida is so stern on the topic, why Todoroki is considering doing this again despite what happened, and why Deku is conflicted on which path he should choose, the Todoroki path or the Ida path. These conflicts are entirely internal, and without overusing flashbacks or creating unnecessary dialogue that's completely expositional in nature, it just shows us these are the characters, these are conflicted, and they have a choice to make. Come back next week to figure out what that choice is, what is their decision. And all the factors I discussed today combined make me believe that the manga has been surpassed by the anime. Leave your opinions and counterpoints in the comments down below. Subscribe if you want more anime videos. But for now, video outro.